So we only had food for 40 people, and we only took out 30 chairs, like the general manager. But I'm so happy to see everyone here. We're ready, the county permitting, the head of county permitting should be here in about 15 minutes. Unfortunately, it seems like the representative from FEMA itself is not here. However,
No, I'm just kidding. She's trying.
this gentleman feels confident that he can explain the FEMA, and I know you're all here about 50-50 and stuff like that he can explain it in great detail. He teaches courses about it. So let's give him the benefit of the doubt and listen. If you have your questions, please ask him. He's ready for a grilling.
We didn't RSVP, so I don't want to take a chair.
Before everyone starts, I want you to listen. This was put together by Lucy. Gulf Harbor is not endorsing anything or backing anyone on this. It's purely informational, and it's not to be a sales pitch for any service or any one person. So please listen, gather your information, and proceed with your heart. Thank you.
All right, my name is Judi, and everybody in the back of the room, hear me okay? This is about as loud as I can get without hurting the people in the front. Perfect. I'm a public adjuster. I've been in the insurance world, in and out of it my whole life, because my father owned his own insurance company, he still does to this day, Deloach Insurance Services. So I've been in the claims industry through him my whole life. I did almost 20 years in the Navy and Army as well, so I got a little better experience, and then I came back to the insurance world. I want to talk to you about the FEMA 50 rule because it sounds like that's what is the most interest right now while we're still waiting on a few more people to show up. So real quick, what I do know about the FEMA 50 rule is when I was doing a lot of Hurricane Ian claims 2 years ago, people had the same type of problem where you had multiple perils. You had flood and you had wind damage from Hurricane Ian. And a lot of people don't know what to do. A lot of people are concerned about the FEMA 50 rule. If it's going to kick into effect, what's going to happen? Am I going to have to elevate my house? Am I going to, what do I do? Where do I get that money? All those types of concerns are what I'm going to talk about in just a minute. But first, I'm going to tell you where the policy sits right now. Lee County was down south for Hurricane Ian. That was the most flooded out county from Hurricane Ian. So they were chartered by the state to sort of lead the way on how they were going to move forward with the FEMA 50 rule, because most people, or a lot of people, didn't want to have to elevate their house, and they wanted to just rebuild. And so Lee County Commissioners were going to create this thing called the Florida 75 rule. That way it bumped up that percentage so people wouldn't have to, worry about elevating their home. But what happened was FEMA and DC and the Florida Department of Emergency Management out of Tallahassee said, if you guys vote on this, well, it's really FEMA and DC, said if you guys vote on this in 2 days like they were planning to do, FEMA was going to pull out of the whole state and wasn't going to back Florida, the whole state, for flood insurance. And so Lee County Commissioners flew up to DC 2 days before they were supposed to vote, and they got back briefed on how they could move forward and also how they could advise homeowners that don't want to elevate their home. So that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit, because that policy is still in effect. That is still the guidance from Hurricane Ian. It hasn't changed. So if you haven't heard what the FEMA 50 rule is, I'll tell you now. It's if the if the cost of repairs is 50% or more than the property appraised value of the home, FEMA wants, and the government wants, to incentivize homeowners to elevate it. They don't want to pay for a flood claim again, just like you don't want to get flooded again. So they've incentivized people that are willing to elevate their home through the FEMA 50 rule. That's what it is. If the cost of repairs is more than 50% of the value, the property appraised value, then that rule kicks into effect. Now, most people here are already going to be in that category. So what do? The legal way that they came to a conclusion and told Lee County Commissioners to, present this to to the whole county and also to the state, because they were the ones leading the way, is there's two ways around it. Legally, two ways around it. First, you can get your own private property appraiser, and if you do that, a lot of times it will make it higher than the county's property appraised value of the home. So if you don't want to demo it, then you can do that. Okay, you can get your private property appraiser and elevate it more price, more of an increased price. Or the other side of it, you can also, in conjunction with that, whenever your GC, your general contractor, goes to apply for permits, just don't have them do it in one whole picture. You know, if he thinks it's going to cost $200,000 or $400,000 to rebuild your home, don't have him put that on the permit. Have him do it in sections. Have them do it in sections. You know, I think drywall permits, I think those for this county might have just been, waived, so they don't need to do permits for certain things right now. But the point is, if you don't want to elevate, have your contractor apply for permits in sections and not all at once. It's that easy. If you don't want to elevate your home, if you just want to rebuild, but you're in that threshold and you're concerned about it, don't worry, because there is no FEMA bulldozers bulldozing grandma's house. That's not going to happen. All right, it's not going to happen. There's no bad human out there. Don't get me wrong. I don't agree with everything the government does, but they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. So, if you want to elevate your home,
where's the incentive?
if you want to, yes, there is.
What? Grants, money or something?
Actually, yes. The question is, what is the incentive if you do want to elevate your home? And the incentive is this. First off, we're gonna, you're gonna try to get your policy limit on your flood insurance, right? That's your first step. This is a multi-level step process. All right. It also depends on your insurance that you have coverage for your flood, as well as your homeowner's insurance. If you have wind damage, a lot of people have both. But FEMA, outside of the insurance world, has also, I know people that have gotten up to $100,000 just from FEMA funds, not insurance, but FEMA funds to help elevate the home. So that's another thing you can apply for. I'm not FEMA, please don't hold me to that, but the way that you're going to apply and the amount of money that they're going to set aside for this storm and for people that are affected like you is going to be determined by FEMA. And I'm hoping it's at least $100,000 because a lot of people, if you're going to elevate, you're going to find that it's going to be more than $250,000 to do so. So with that being said, about the FEMA 50 rule, can I take a few just questions and then we'll go from there?
So can you explain how we calculate property appraised value?
The question is, can I explain how to calculate the property appraised value? It's a good question.
Before the storm?
If you go, well, no. Yes and no, actually. If you go to the county property appraiser's website, you'll see how much your total property value is. It'll have the land value on there. It'll have your dwelling value on there. You want to make sure you're looking at the structure because that's all it's based on. It's not based on the value of the land. It's based on the dwelling, the structure. So I don't know exactly what the language is. I think it says structure on this county's property appraiser website, but you want to look at the structure value.
So
Next.
to clarify that, you're talking structure value, not an appraised value, because it's what you're being taxed on the structure is what they're trying to base it on. So not the full value, the appraised value of the house with your property. You're talking strictly structural tax assessed value.
Correct.
Not an appraised value.
Well, it's the property it's the county property appraiser's website, and the county does it automatically. So they don't send property appraisers out to everybody's home. That doesn't happen. But if you go to the county property appraiser's website for tax purposes, that is where you will find the county's property appraised value of your home, unless you've had a private property appraiser do it for you and they filed it with the county.
I think what you're talking about is just value, which is on your sheet, versus the taxable value, which is lower because of the Save Our Home and all of that.
Correct.
So
That is correct.
taxable value is just value. Are you talking
Building.
about just value?
Building. You got 290.
It says building, by the way. When you go to the tax records, it says building.
The question, what's that?
Building, not structure. If you look at the tax records, building.
Okay, we're talking about different tax questions here. Can you repeat your question, sir?
Well, when you get your tax bill, there's the amount. If it's homesteaded and you're limited to the 3%, you have the amount that you're taxed on.
Correct.
Versus the just value, which is what they, which I guess maybe you're calling appraised value, what the county says the house is worth versus what you have, the amount you actually pay your tax on.
So this gentleman right here just provided me his property appraised, sheet. It says the assessed value. So the question is it the just value or the assessed value? And the answer is it's the assessed value. Because they're not talking about the land, because you're taxed on the whole thing. Go ahead, what's your
If you
question?
get a private appraiser and they appraise it higher, they file that with the county, doesn't that also raise our property taxes?
Yes.
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 I don't want to say because I'm not a tax guy, but I would go with the audience. I would lean that direction.
Yeah.
Okay?
I didn't hear her question. What was it?
The question is if you file, your personally, you hire a property appraiser to come out and they give you the property value. Now, if that gets filed with the county, now your tax is going to be going up. And the response was probably, yes. Well, I'm not a tax guy. Don't beat me up. I promise I'm not a tax guy. And I don't want to be. But that I don't recommend doing it, by the way. The way that I recommend, if this was my house, if I got flooded, I would be going to your general contractor that's going to be doing your rebuild and just don't have him put the full amount in for the different sections of the rebuild. Because all the county permitting office is going to look at when they go to pull permits is if it's more than 50% of what's in their system. And if it's not, you get the permit. If it is, nope, you got to go back and apply again. That's what it is. So let me ask you. Hey, let me ask or have somebody else ask a question if anybody wants. Go ahead. Man, gentleman in the back.
So if they do pull a second round, they stay underneath that dollar amount, is there a time period they have to wait between the dollar amounts? Like you have to wait a year, 1 year?
That's a good question. The question is, do you have to wait a certain time period? That would be a better question for the permitting office, and I know we did have a permitting person that was supposed to be here tonight. He's on his way. So that's a really good question. It's going to be based on the permitting office. And I know they had a tent out here. I actually talked to 7 of them when their tent was staged and was asking them, how they're going to move forward. But I don't have the answer for the time frame on how long that permit is going to stay with them. So that would be a question for the permitting office.
So we just got our flood insurance. Adjuster came in and spent $3 on our case. Wealth information. Been at it for 30 years, done over 1,000 claims. And we asked him that very question. He said it's the just value times 1.15. Yeah, that's right. 15% above the just value and it's half. Yes. Which is in contrast to what you just said.
Yeah. So the point that the gentleman would make, could you present that to the whole room, please?
Our flood adjuster came, we asked him that very question. You're going to have this problem where you're going to tear a house down. Hold on. He said, not even close. He said it's the just value plus 15%. If the just value times
1.5. He's saying
15% above the just value, and then it's half of that amount.
so.
That's what he said.
That's what the flood adjuster said. Now I will say this. I've educated a lot of flood adjusters myself. A lot of flood adjusters never even heard of the FEMA 50 rule. But to be fair, I'm not in the permitting office, and every permitting office is going to have a little bit different policy. I actually did a flood house for somebody. They had a flood, but there was a fire that started from the flood, and the rest of the house burnt down. So they had 2 barrels, and I just helped them get the total limit of his homeowner's insurance, coverage and ordinance and law, and all the flood coverage, because we were able to work with the permitting office and say, hey, this is what happened. We need you to say it's substantially damaged, which it is. And we also need you to say it's a total loss because the permitting office only cares about the 2 words substantially damaged. That's the FEMA 50 point. And it is a local thing. When I went to that permitting office, he was the permitting gentleman I was speaking with said it was 51% and it wasn't 50%. He was not the supervisor. He didn't understand the whole FEMA 50
I can tell you it's actually 49.
Is this a FEMA? So this is a
While he's
Pasco
asking me-
County.
Hold on, while he's asking that question, I wanted to let you know, I just spoke with a FEMA person. She would like, so that she's able to get proper, true answers for questions. After we're doing a Q&A, if people have specific questions, I'm just gonna write them all down, and then she's gonna come and we'll get a big screen on Saturday, and she'll be able to answer questions for everybody, on that. So she wants to kind of be prepared for what, and make sure that she's not flying off of the cuff. And I will take everybody's answers to questions.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Prepared on Saturday. We're having another seminar at 11 o'clock on Saturday.
You said you didn't run the timeline, so let me talk straight. We have an afternoon function. We'll talk about it.
What other questions about the FEMA 50? Is that 1.15 multiplier is probably what's, in effect right now for Pasco. That's what she just showed me. So if that's the case right now, that's the latest and greatest, but
again, it's the just value.
it's the just value. Just value times 1.15 is what this gentleman's talking about, and if we get a FEMA person here, we'll be able to poke holes in it.
Okay, there's supposedly was a FEMA suit. I missed it, but the rumors are going around that one, if you take FEMA assistant, you're forced into getting flood insurance, whether it's going to be a death or having flood. Flood can get the life of the home, or is it just 3 years? Do you have to pay these loans back? Do you have to pay these sins?
What's the question? Let me repeat the question. The question is, if you get one of the grants from FEMA, there's rumors that you might have to get flood insurance after that if they give you a grant. I cannot answer that because I'm not a FEMA guy, I'm not an insurance broker. I can say I have heard the same rumors.
I just got it in writing.
But that would be a question for
I'll write it down.
your insurance broker.
3
And
years, the lifetime of the home, flood insurance could go skyrocket. You can't afford it.
I have heard that as well.
I'm waiting for my
If you get a grant, I have heard that as well. If you want FEMA assistance, I have heard that. I can't confirm that, and I'm not going to try. But that's something that you can try to figure out on your own. That is one of your concerns.
And the crowd goes wild.
When I dug into the website, when they accepted the eligibility for FEMA grant, and I tried really digging into it, and I finally got to a point where I saw on the FEMA website that if you accept the money, the way their language says, you are required to keep and maintain flood insurance. And that's all they say. That's all they say. There's no more specifics than that.
And the gentleman said, he just confirmed what we were saying, is that probably is the result. If they give you a grant, then they will probably require you to have flood insurance. The only alibi I would offer to the gentleman is that if you do elevate your home, you might not have to get that flood insurance any longer because you're going to be 1 foot above the BFE, which means you would meet the standard for the FEMA 50 to not even apply to your home. So I would just submit that might be the alternative if you're really trying to get out of paying flood insurance.
Can I ask a question? Just a silly question. When you're talking about putting together an estimate for submittal for the building department for a permit.
Say again?
Okay. When you're putting together your estimate to apply for a permit.
Yes.
And you put together a application that says you're buying Home Depot kitchen cabinets and they're gonna be $10,000. And then they get to the permit and all of a sudden you say, hey, gee, I wanted the $50,000 permits. What happens then?
So the question is, if your permits have already been applied for, but during that time you want to upgrade to something a lot more expensive that you might run into the FEMA 50 rule, I would work with your GC and directly whoever your cabinet person is or your general contractor, whoever is doing your rebuild that the permits are on, talk to them directly, let them know your concerns because they should also be aware of the FEMA 50 rule, at least through you. You should be telling them, hey, We got to keep the permit levels under this amount. And they're going to know that real quick, because as soon as they go to apply for it, it's going to get denied, and then they're going to learn about it from the permitting office. Does that answer your question, Perry? Good? Someone got a question in the back? Go ahead, sir.
So between last night and today, the county posted our 2024 assessment versus our 2023 assessment. Mine went up $21,000 for improvements. Am I based off of yesterday's information, the date of the incident, or the date I applied for the permit?
That's a good question. The gentleman said the appraised value just went up very recently. Today. So I'm not at the permitting office, but I am guessing. I'm pretty confirmed on this that whenever your GC goes to pull the permits, they're going to look at whatever that active thing is on the county property appraiser's website. They're not going to look at yesterday's or the day before. It's going to be automated for some of the county permitting offices as well. So I would go out on a limb and just make an assumption, a guess, that they're probably going to see your today's assessed value.
Or day of damage incurred.
Right, which would be $21,000.
That's a good question, actually. The gentleman pointed out, well, what about, the date that the loss occurred? Because that's how insurance views everything, right? The county permitting office, I'm very confident, but I would get more confidence if they were here to answer, is that it's going to be off of the current, when you go to pull the permits, it's whatever the day that you pull the permits rate is at. That's my educated guess, and I would work with your GC and the permitting office more if you want to get more clarity. I'm an insurance guy.
What if I'm the GC, a homeowner?
If you're doing the rebuild yourself, question is, if you're doing the rebuild yourself, if you're a homeowner, some people don't pull permits when they do a rebuild. That's the reality. You're going to potentially run into problems when you do a resale, because some things need permits, some things don't.
I bought it as is with no inspection, and I'll sell it as is with no inspection.
Then you don't need to go to the permitting office, to apply for any permits. Problem solved.
That's not a good decision.
If you're a GC, the gentleman behind me said, real quick, the gentleman behind me pointed out, to do it the legal way and the right way is to, if you're going to do the work yourself,
You're going to have to pull a permit. I'm an attorney. I'm here to help you on certain questions, but you're going to have to pull a permit. Because if you do the work that's unpermitted, not only can the city or county take everything back down, but your insurance company said you did this work unpermitted. And so they won't pay the insurance benefits.
Unless you don't have a mortgage on the home. If you don't have a mortgage on the home, then you're going to get the money, and nobody else is going to have to endorse it, and you're going to be able to spend that money how you see fit.
And if for some reason, because if I do pull a permit, the county comes in and finds that the old gentleman 40 years before me did something that's not correct, then I'll call it as is where it is, with no inspection. And I'll sell it as is where it is with no inspection. How could I be held accountable for something like that?
If you're buying and selling it as is, the question is this gentleman going to be held accountable when he sells the home, or if he sells the home, and then something happens to the new homeowner? So that's not really an insurance question, because insurance is only going to cover a covered peril. If anything is like a manufacturer or an installation defect, they're not going to open coverage from an insurance perspective. But if there was some kind of, if you rebuilt the house, like a 2-story house, and you didn't put the planks in there and somebody fell through and hurt themselves, then you might get sued by them if they found it was you were at fault for doing that install without a permit. But outside of that, is that a clear example for answering the question?
All I want to do is return it as I bought it.
Absolutely.
So that's an area, you're a GC, you're going to know the right way to do it. So what do you got?
I've heard rumors that if you only cut 2 feet up rather than 4 feet up, it does not need to be permitted.
So the question is, if you only cut 2 feet up rather than 4 feet up, it does not need to be permitted. That would be a good permitting question from an insurance perspective.
Where are the people that can answer our questions? I get it, you're here, you keep saying you don't have the answers to our questions. Where are the people that have the answers to our questions? We made it here on time. Where are they?
Oh, come on. Really?
I know. Well, it's true. I mean, I took the day off, 24 hours off.
Okay, hold on, everybody. This is
You can't yell at him.
No, it's not his fault.
Sabin Patel from the permit office. Let's let
Pass it over. Bravo.
let's listen to
do we have any more questions?
Yes.
She shared that, I don't feel not sure, anything over 250 square feet of, drywall required a permit. It didn't say that you could self-contract, but that you would have an inspection that would be looking at installation and nail placement.
And for insurance, if you have flood insurance, they're gonna pay for up to 4 foot because the way drywall slabs come is 8 by 4, so they're gonna pay for up to that 4 foot.
Can you answer that question?
Permitting officer, can you step forward pretty please? What's your name, sir? Salvin? All right, I'm JD, nice to meet you. You got a room full of people that want to hear you speak. Mr. Salvin?
The question was that if you only cut 2 feet rather than 4 feet up in your home, does the 2 feet still have to be permitted?
Yes, so now when it comes to any kind of repair, remodel, anything in the flood zone, it requires some sort of permit because FEMA wants to be accounted for. So substantial damage package is what normally you fill out. And when you fill out that portion, just you put in the market value and labor, whatever you need for that, plus with the contract, and then you do overhead profit. Does it need a permit? Yes, it does.
For whose purposes? The county or for you?
For the county, because we participate in the National Flood Insurance Program, so it does require it.
You said rebuild or remodel. I don't think anybody's remodeling. I think we're rebuilding. So is that the same? Restoring, yeah.
We're not remodeling, we're restoring.
Yeah,
It's a restoration.
So restoring development.
Can I ask why? That makes absolutely no sense. If I am putting my walls back up, they were up yesterday.
Exactly.
And I'm putting them back up today.
Yes.
Why in God's name would I have to go through FEMA and the county?
Right.
That makes no sense. I'm trying to understand.
I asked that question yesterday at the office across the street, and because I was pissed about it, and they said that what they explained to me, help me understand it, was that the county tells us that we have to do that because they're accountable to the federal government. The federal government is saying that you have to meet a certain threshold of...
That's not true. The truth is that the county has flexibility.
Right.
And the county could be more amenable to its inhabitants, and
Yes.
perhaps FEMA will raise the county
and that's what I said
by
back to
0.5%. But it's in the county's hands at this point. It's not in FEMA's and it's not in ours.
Can I just address that real quick? The point on the floor is, do we go and execute the county permitting office people for making us do this when they shouldn't have to listen to FEMA? The only thing I would submit to you is that when the Lee County Commissioners were literally trying to do that, to guide the state's policy on how flood was going to be managed moving forward, they were literally trying to do that because they wanted to protect their homeowners, and the Lee County Commissioners were told by FEMA that FEMA was going to pull out of the whole state if they didn't.
I'm talking about sheetrock.
I'm just
I'm
broad.
talking
I'm
about
just submitting a broad
$15
statement.
a piece of sheetrock.
I agree with you. I actually agree with you.
Not
But
other people.
no,
So
I
guys,
mean,
what I would like to do at this time is I would like to have maybe like 4 or 5 questions at a time. And maybe Sabine? Sabin, I got mental flashes today, I'm so sorry. Sabin Patel will answer them. I will repeat the questions back toward everyone to hear, and then we'll just do it slowly and quietly. Okay, yes.
Okay, so I'm probably like a lot of people in this room that's not going to, and really does not want to have to go hire some general contractor to hang sheetrock.
Yeah.
Okay? It's not hard. But if we need a permit, fine. What do we need to know without any question on how to reinstall that sheetrock, go through the inspection process? We want to make sure is there certain screw patterns? What are you looking for the county? So when you guys show up to do your inspection, we're not going to fail. Right. So we can get our houses back livable.
So the question
There's a lot of people in this room that simply just took sheetrock out. That's basically the damage. They took their baseboards out and their sheetrock out, and they want to put it back. And you're saying, well, if you have more than 8 sheets, you need to get a permit. Well, that's fine. Just walk us through that process so we don't run into a problem later.
So the question is, sir, get it back so the rest of the room can hear it. So the question is, if you want to do your own drywall, what are the steps and requirements of the city? So when you do pull a permit and you have an inspection, what are the proper steps to install drywall? I personally would say you do. You can have an appointment with the permit office and he can tell you. I'm sure there's websites and things.
I don't know if I can answer it right now because
you got to speak up.
We can't hear you. So there is an installation from what I remember, and I believe there's a final. If not, I can follow up on that right now. Give me a sec. I can text our building official inspector to follow up on that final or not. I know there's an installation inspection.
Is that only for exterior walls or interior?
Well, I didn't know it
Let's try to get a few more questions answered. I know people are going to get really rowdy real quick if the whole room gets loud. I'm going to want to leave too. Let's not try to do that because there's a lot of good questions we can still get answered if we stay a little bit quiet and everybody is a little bit respectful for the noise level. Let me get this question first. Go ahead.
Before the gentleman arrived, somebody said certain permits are going to be waived. What permits are you waiving?
The question for the back is, we had made a statement earlier that some permits are being waived. And what we would like to get answered by the permitting official is if he knows about any of those permits that have been waived for all the permitting fees, his response, all the permitting fees have been waived. Has anything else been waived?
Is that exterior walls that have to be inspected or just interior walls also?
I believe the exterior. Again,
Just exterior. This is my understanding is exterior walls with the insulation. Interior walls can be sheetrock. Is that correct?
So everybody, Sabine is here. Now we can set up maybe on Saturday. I can see if one of the building inspectors can help.
Chief Inspector, please.
I will see.
So we can get
I'm sure he will have. I will do my best. I will do my best. He can come on Saturday to set up a time and his availability. However, I want to really clarify. What Sabine is here for. He is the building department code supervisor. So he is working with the building, the code, what code is required for you to pull a permit and things like that. He's in charge of that. As far as the inspections and, insulation, drywall, electrical, plumbing, all of that, that is not what his job is. So, go ahead.
Let's find whose job it is.
I know whose job it is. I will try and get it.
set up a day and time. We're going to have all the inspectors here for all trades.
Daytime, people are working on their house. Nobody lives here. Everybody's moved out. People don't live here anymore.
We do it after our, if you like, we do that. I wasn't aware this was going to happen besides coming in for answering one question. That's why some of these questions I personally can't answer because it's the rest of my department. I don't mind bringing the rest of the department out here to answer the question. I wasn't aware of this. So, I don't mind sending an after-hour weekend where some of these questions can be answered.
So we'll set that up, okay? Well, you gotta understand. I can guarantee you, but we're gonna just raise your hand, so hold on. Well, nothing's being answered, though. You have a nice company of trying to, you don't have your FEMA, you don't have all the departments of the permitting. People are in a devastated area, just like Ian was, just like Katrina. We should have people here that
stop all the rumors and tell us how FEMA works, how the money works, how the payments work, if there's loans, if it's a lifetime. There's a lot of important questions.
We have a lot, we have a
I
whole
need to apply, but I'm not gonna
We
apply
have
to
a whole
somebody
panel
else.
that's
He's not
They're not
FEMA.
FEMA. They're
He's
not
not
FEMA.
FEMA.
Not FEMA. I said I will, at the end, after Q&A, after everyone has gone through it, are they, I will ask if it's said, or are they?
The question, real quick, the question for the back of the room is what we talked about, we want the FEMA representatives to be here. And so there is some effort that's going to be made to get that done. What we've got today, for a few other questions that we can focus, that we can answer, with the folks that you do have here, you got an attorney, I believe, you got another public adjuster, you got a general contractor, you got a roofer. Actually, I think you have several roofers in the house. You have water mitigation folks in the room. So there is a lot of other questions that we might be able to help with. So I've already called on you once. Let me call somebody else first. I got it. Green shirt, go ahead.
I don't know if any of the permitting processes for additional permits have changed since the hurricane. Have they changed their rules on what they're required?
That's a great question.
Since
The question for the rest of the room is, have any permitting processes changed since the storm, since Helene, not necessarily Milton, but have any permitting processes changed? This is a permitting question, so I'm going to ask loudly, if I can, have any permitting processes changed since Helene hit, other than waiving the fees? No processes have changed.
Permit right now would have been the same thing last year, precisely.
If it's in the flood zone, it requires substantial improvement package for review, but that hasn't changed.
Okay.
If the FEMA 50 rule hasn't changed.
Fine. How far back are you going on repairs on our homes?
It's a 1 year period.
1 year period. So if we did something 7 or 8 months ago, you're adding that value into our 50%. So if we got new windows, or we put on a roof, you're adding that value.
That's a really important thing, and that actually addresses the gentleman's previous question that was in the back. The question is, let me repeat that for the rest of the room, if you don't mind. How long does the permit stay in the permitting office? If your GC does that sectional thing, if they pull the permits in sections, how long do those permits that were pulled stay in their queue? And the answer is 1 year. The answer is 1 year. So that's going to be a really important factor when people start doing the rebuild, if they're going to try to do it in stages. It's going to be important for you and your GC to understand.
Is that annually or is that 1 year?
Oh, is it, the question is it annually?
And he's going to tell you it's all.
Yep.
Yeah, what?
So it's not a calendar year. It's from the time they open, the date they open the permit, 12 months from the date you open the permit. The question was, is it a calendar year or is it when the permit is open?
No, the date the permit was closed.
The date the permit was closed, excuse me. The date the permit was closed. It's from the date it was closed, not a calendar year. All right, I got another question for this gentleman.
Okay, so I went yesterday and got a whole packet of paper from the office across the other side of 19. And one of those pieces of paper, I forget what it's titled, but number 4 on there states that you will not sell or lease your home out for a year. And this is something that has to be notarized. I want to know if anybody up here, maybe the attorney, can speak to that and explain what right maybe the county might have to keep people from selling their home if they so choose after it's repaired.
Can I repeat that question for the rest of the room?
Free.
So that's a great
Everybody
question.
needs to know.
Right, that's a great question. The question is talking about resale. So he reviewed the substantial damage packet that he got from the permitting office, and it says you're not allowed to sell the home within a year from the flood or a year from the rebuild.
Or rent it out.
Or rent it out for a year from the time of the flood or a year from the rebuild.
I'm asking about the details
Okay,
about that.
that is the question.
Because I have no idea why anybody would be allowed to tell any homeowner that they are not allowed to sell or rent their home out.
I agree with that 100% from the people in the back of the room. That would be
I
very.
refuse to sign that paper, so is that going to mean that my permit will not be granted to repair my home? I can't hear you.
If you are the owner of the home, you have the right to general contractor. if you are.
Can you say that again?
You're the owner.
Can you stand up?
Yes. I understand. You're the owner of the home. You have the right to general contractor something.
Correct.
Then you fall into that category. If you hire a licensed contractor, then you do not fall into that right.
Why?
Hey, if I have to have a permit to do the work, just like the GC does, then why am I restricted from doing what I want or see fit or need to do with my own home?
It's the same reason why they don't give you your depreciation right away, because they don't know that you actually did it the proper way.
Yes, they do. They
They
ask
have
for
to
a
inspect it.
Right.
They have to
That's
inspect
what the
it.
permit's for. That whole number 4 on that paper needs to be eliminated.
Yeah.
Before anybody signs that paper.
You're requiring a permit. Of course they know if it was done right. They inspect it.
I've been doing this for 30 years. I know I don't look that old. Ain't that old. We're doing insurance law.
Not what we were gonna say, but okay, go ahead.
Thank you. But you guys are really upset. I can see that. I get that. But there's nothing that we can do here, up here, to change the laws that are in place right now. But that's not for us to change. We're here to help you answer questions, if you can, related to what you have now to get you through this process. You know, and I think that's what we have to focus on. Because I can help you with all the questions related to how do you get the claim paid? What you should say to your adjuster? What do you need to do? What kind of forms you need to do? How do you get the most money and bang out of your buck from the insurance company? That's what I can do.
I don't want to sell my house if I want to after it's
You know
repaired.
what? But that's the rule. If the rule is the rule, I can't make the change right now.
I can get the 50% rule.
They actually do have a right to do that to the citizens of America.
If the statute, legislative Florida has stated that. That's it.
Well, that's the question, where's the permit? So here's the rule, is you have the rule,
So this is the argument right in the court of public opinion is I don't want the government to tell me I can't sell my house.
No, the argument is that what he just said over there was that there's no guarantee that it's done right. Well, if there's no guarantee that it's done right, but we're being forced to pull permits and get inspections, then what's the point of getting the permit and the inspection?
The only thing I was going to submit to you to be able to figure out on your own, and for anybody else in a similar situation, is that what type of authoritative arm do you think is going to punish you for selling your home?
It is being recorded, yes, on
If
Facebook.
I get to the closing
It's a video saying it, yes. I've got something to say next. I'm gonna have to raise my hand.
Law enforcement truck going around saying you can't sell your house.
If you're right, then why is it on that paper?
And
why does that paper have to be notarized?
I would 100% bring it with your fee. That's a concern for you. If you have the same concern,
We all have a lot of money tied up in these homes.
right. But you
These are
should
huge
address it.
investments for all
You
of
should
us.
address it with those proper authorities to get an answer. I agree with you. Let me give another question.
I got one.
Hold on, just piggyback. Where's our county commissioner?
I'm not exactly commissioner.
What I'm gonna do right now is building.
I'm right here, yeah.
So what I'd like to do right now.
Want to yell at you too.
So, can I just follow up on that? If I don't sign that paper, will my permit not be approved?
I have a question.
That's my question. Seriously?
I'd like to say something about what he just said. So you're saying about that. Here's where you were asking about number 4. Why did they have that? My husband went to spoke to them across the street today, right? And when I say this hopefully will make sense to you. So a lot of people are coming into our community, planning to buy our houses for a fraction for what they're worth, right? Don't rebuild, I'll buy it from you for a fraction. They're
Right.
gonna come into our community, they're gonna buy up our homes, and they're gonna fix them up and they're gonna put them back in the market. They're gonna rent them out for Airbnb. Many of us have said, we don't want that for our community. We don't want to be our so the investors aren't coming in, buying our houses, fixing them up, putting them in, or renting them out within that year. That was what we were told was really
I can
behind that,
understand it, but
protect
still,
the community.
that's not my freedom.
Guys, what I'd like to do at this point is I would like to introduce the panel, and then we're gonna talk a little bit more about insurance, about building back, about working with the general contractor,
Well, I have
insurance claims questions.
One more thing. I believe many of us are gonna try and GC this ourselves.
That's fine, yeah.
Okay, so,
That's one of the things we're gonna talk about, certificates that you're gonna need if you go to resell your home. That's something we're gonna talk about. The mortgage company is gonna be on your insurance check, the process that you're gonna have to go through once you finally get your insurance check. Then you have to send it off to the mortgage company and they hold on to it for 2 months before they endorse it and send it back to you. These are the things what we're gonna talk about.
that's so far
we're
down
gonna
the
set up.
road though, we're still not permitted.
Yes.
We're still not trying to.
You have to get the money from the insurance company.
No, we don't.
Yeah,
Let's say
we
we don't.
want to know what we have to do to proceed in life.
So what we're gonna do, what we are going to do, and I'll work with you on this, is we will set up with the building. We left. You scared him off. No, what we're gonna do
We're not
is
meeting again unless FEMA's going to be.
Gotcha.
So that is what we will set up on Saturday. You and I will work together. I will work with them to see if they can do it on Saturday or for whatever day, either after hours or on the weekend.
Can I ask-
That taken care of so that we have the right people here for you to answer those questions.
Can I ask a question to Pasco County?
I'm sorry.
I got a question for Pasco County in particular. Okay, I don't know why you're so worried about drywall. We had a garage built by a GC a few years ago, Tom Craig Construction. Our garage was totally crooked, off kilter, everything, and they passed it every single time. And Pasco County told us they passed every permit when our garage was crooked, and Pasco County passed Tom Craig every single time and told us, just take money off at the end. And you guys are worried about drywall?
2 feet, I don't care about driveway.
Yeah. No, talking about permitting, but I'm saying, they inspected this garage. It had to be tore down. And you're talking about drywall? Tell them how crooked it was. It was bad.
I got pictures, and then turned around, we had a hurricane door put in.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna
Yeah.
go ahead and introduce the panel.
So yeah, the inspection failed.
I'm gonna set up a separate meeting.
Yeah.
I'm gonna set up a separate meeting, I promise.
Yeah, so crazy. So crazy.
These people here can't do anything about it.
I mean, they tore down our, Pasco County should be able to answer. I know, they should be able to answer that question.
Well, no one's here that can answer that.
I know. And you know
not their
what?
fault.
Actually, though, Tom Craig was in cahoots with the building inspector. And he's no longer looking at what all. But that's what I'm saying. You can pass a garage. Piss me off. Just kind of makes your blood boil. He did a fantastic job.
The question is
Very good job.
the same question that he asked earlier. Let me get him. The same question is it going to require a permit, like the woman in the back said, if it's under 250 square feet? Right? If it's over 200 square feet, hey, I need a permit guy. Please go. Please go. So,
I have a question, sir. What if you don't take any money?
while we're waiting on the permitting officer to come over, let me answer this. Go ahead. Okay. You got a question for the group?
Oh, wow, it's my turn.
Let me ask this gentleman to.
What if you don't take any money from insurance or FEMA?
If you don't, the question is, what if you don't take any insurance money from FEMA or your homeowner's insurance?
Correct.
So that's the question. It still comes down to a permitting problem. If you want to build it back right so that when you go to sell the home, you know, that when they look at it, if they see rebuilds or renovations or anything like that, you're going to have to disclose that the house was involved in a flood. You're going to have to disclose that. If you got a good realtor that's representing the buyer, that good realtor is going to say, well, you know, Was it rebuilt to code? And if it wasn't, that's going to cause an issue. They're also going to ask for the dry out laws. They're going to say, hey, did a proper water mech person or mold person certify that there isn't any mold behind these walls before drywall was slapped back on? So that's another thing that you're going to run into when you go to resell the house. So if you get tear out of your own drywall, I highly recommend before you start rebuilding, I highly recommend you contact any licensed mold, or not just water mid company, but a licensed mold assessor or a licensed mold remediator, because what they can do is they can come by and they can test all the rooms, the moisture levels in the rooms. They can spray with antimicrobial spray, and then they can give you a letter on their letterhead that says, yep, this thing was dry and it was treated for mold before the build back happened. So even if you did the tear out yourself, you can still contact several restoration companies, and I know some of them, the cards are on that table right there. That will just do that one letter, to certify it's dry and it's clear mold.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I have my hand up.
Oh, well, okay, go ahead.
You brought up a good point about having to build back to code. If you have a window or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 and have to come out, does FEMA have to build back to code? All the things that they require of them. Do they have to provide up to code improvement?
The question is, if you have windows that were damaged,
windows, doors, opening, anything that FEMA is involved in, do they have to provide up to current code?
Do they have to provide up to current code? And the answer is no. The answer is no, because the flood insurance policy doesn't include, if it's an NFIP policy, which is the National Flood Insurance Program, this is a question I can answer. They will not pay for ordinance and law upgrades. So if you had a window or a door that was built out of code, for example, which is very rare, but if it was built out of code, they don't have ordinance and law. They will pay if you can prove that the window was damaged from the flood or the door swole from the flood, which is very easy for doors. Not so easy for, not so easy for windows, but very easy for wood. If you can prove it for the windows, like some of my clients had the flood and they had pilings smashing against their glass with their hurricane windows. Those, if you can prove damage, like if it's been the rails, if they don't open coverage on the front end, get a PA and help fight your way to get them covered, because that's like a $30,000 hurricane door just in itself. So they're not required to pay ordinance and law, but they are required to pay for RCV, which is, the replaceable cost value.
Right, so that's not code, but you said the purpose of the permit was to make sure that we build back the code. Wait, let me finish. You said that if somebody finds out that their house is involved in a flood, and they come in and they start seeing that you pull things apart, they want to make sure that it's up to code. But now you're saying that FEMA doesn't have to. So that doesn't really solve the problem.
And it boils, the question is, why? Why do you have to do it if FEMA doesn't pay for ordinance and law? I believe that's the question. But the reality is, FEMA's not going to enforce when you go to sell your home.
But it doesn't resolve your issue. You said the reason that you have these permits and so forth is to make sure that things are up to code. So that when they go back and they find out your house was in the flood, now all of a sudden you're saying it's not really up to code though. So I don't understand how that works.
Okay, go ahead, Lucy. Lucy's got it.
So what I was gonna say is, in regards to the $250,000, there's a reason why your policy is only $250,000. It is not a full-blown insurance policy like your homeowners. What it is it's a little tiny breadcrumb that the federal government is giving you in the amount of $250,000. They're not going to pay for code. They're not going to pay for your additional living expenses. It is essentially a program that the government is providing that you pay for up to $250,000. Your homeowners have the law and ordinance or code upgrades, however you want to call it. It has contents, it has loss of use, all of those things that you pay for. The $250,000 FEMA flood insurance program is literally just a little breadcrumbs to kind of help you out best they can. And they charge a bucket.
And I want to add to that, because some people might have private flood insurance, like your Lloyd's of London. If you have private flood insurance, ordinance and law coverage is an option that you can purchase. Most people, though, have an NFIP policy. And if it's an NFIP policy, it's not going to have ordinance and law. But you still should. If you can prove it was damaged by the flood, you still should be able to get that money recovered. It's an RCV policy, which it is if it's NFIP. Question in the back.
My
statement in the back is she thinks you think you have 30,000 of ordinance and law. I can tell you, if it's an NFIP policy, you don't. I know the NFIP pull it. I'd be happy to look at it with you. But if you have a private policy, if you have a private flood policy, it will have ordinance and law, potentially, if you pay for it. Another question.
Let's say you make 150,000 worth of repairs, house, because there's 150,000 repairs, so you're not technically goes with the 50/50 rule and you have to go up. You wouldn't have anything from the plus policy for $150,000 coverage.
So the question is, if you have $150,000 of damage and your home is now over the 50%, would you have to elevate? We talked about it initially and might have missed it, but the answer is not necessarily. It's more about what you want. If you want to elevate your home, there's other incentives.
My question is more about insurance law. Insurance will provide more than $150,000.
So for the insurance, the question is, will they provide more if you need to elevate? And for NFIP, I can tell you no, they're not going to give you more than the line items that they spit out in exactment, or if you get a good PA that's able to negotiate a settlement. But outside of that, they're probably not. There is additional money you can apply for, though, at FEMA, not through the flood policy, but they give money out to people that don't even have flood insurance. And I've known people that have gotten $100,000 to elevate their own in addition to the flood insurance money they got. So $100,000 in addition to that. I've also known people that didn't have flood insurance, and I pointed them to the FEMA number, and they were able to get 30 grand, and they didn't have flood insurance at all. That was for Hurricane Ian. So it's really about how you apply with FEMA to try to get it. All right, we got another question. Okay, so that's a great question. The question is, does elevate mean knock it down and then elevate the foundation? That is one option, but it's not the only option. There are other options. So you can also build, as long as the GC, you get with a GC, they can build on top of your first floor, for example, so you don't have to knock down the concrete walls. Right. Or there's also the several contractors in this neighborhood on South Shore right now that are working with the homeowner where they put the steel beams under the foundation and they elevate it. And then they're going to rebuild underneath it once they get it to that height that they need it. And just so everybody, they jack it up. They do it real slow. It's not like a fast thing, but they put steel beams under the foundation and they elevate the whole house. It's a really interesting, unique process. I know the insurance side of it, not the details of how to do it, but that is something, an option. The goal is to get it 1 foot above the BFE, the base flood elevation.
One more question when you have a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you qualified to speak for FEMA?
Am I qualified to speak for FEMA? Absolutely.
All right, so you're
not.
answering for
Absolutely
FEMA.
not.
That's sort of misleading.
No, I said that from the very beginning.
All right,
I'm a licensed public
but you're
adjuster
spending a lot of time on that topic.
because
Sort of
I
ways.
work with FEMA on a regular basis.
And Florida, my other
You're only speaking, you're trying to get us through this.
My other-
FEMA is the one that we can hold.
My other question is-
You are wasting our time because it's
My-
precious, and we need the actual guy that's going to answer the question. Because right now, my situation is different than all of these. I have flood insurance. I'm only going to get so much. So I thought I could.
You're
go
wasting
with
your time.
I can answer your questions if you like.
that I'm hearing,
I'm not qualified though.
stop paying $10,000, $15,000 for the flood next
Let's
year.
be nice, be kind. It is not. This guy's offering his heart and soul. Listen, simmer down. Not his fault.
Not my
Sorry. No, it isn't.
I appreciate keeping me in my lane. Thank you. I don't.
Come on, he's trying.
I get nervous.
Talking a lot about flood. So I have some of you guys here are my clients. We have from Horizon Health Investing. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about is for the last 10 or 12 clients that I've had, we've done the flood assessment, we've gone through, we've worked with the flood, and then all of a sudden my estimator goes in and he's seeing roof leaks. He's seeing watermarks, he's seeing corners, drywall tapes popping, drywall screws are popping from damage from the roof. So everybody thought really that, Milton was, solely just, it was a wind event, but it wasn't as bad as it was, and everything didn't get swirled around like Wizard of Oz. All of my roofs right now, all of my clients except for one have had to have a tarp on their roof. So you're going to start to see that. We haven't had a lot of rain since there's been since there was since Milton, really, since Milton. There hasn't been a lot of rain except for like when the hurricane came through and they had like one crazy day.
I'm going to stop this right now. I think we should defer until we have confirmation that we have somebody from FEMA and somebody who can answer our questions from the permitting department. I don't think we're at this level yet that we need to speak or have a sales pitch for a public adjuster. We all came here for information from FEMA and the building department. We're not getting it, so either we wrap this, or if you want to stay and hear them, you're welcome to.
If we're gonna come down on Saturday, will there be food?